Hi, I'm Lit Marie. I spent years in the classroom as an elementary school teacher, and now I work with 240 to help teachers pass their certification exams. And today, I'm gonna help you. This video is going to prepare you for the GACE Elementary Education Subtest 2, which covers math, science, health, PE, and the arts. This is one of the tests you'll take to teach elementary school in Georgia. And this video is going to cover 3 things: what's on the test and how to study for it, the biggest concepts to know for test day, and we're going to look at a few practice questions. So let's get started. Now, the GACE Elementary Subtest 2 can be broken into 3 sub-areas: mathematics, science, health education, physical education, and the arts. Each sub-area is worth a certain percentage of the exam, and unlike Subtest 1, there are no essay questions here, just 75 multiple-choice questions. Each sub-area has objectives that give more detail about what will be covered on your exam. We will go over one key concept from each objective. Now, if you want to see everything this exam covers, get a 240 study guide. The link is below. But for now, let's take it from the top and talk about some of the most important things to know. The first objective is all about counting and cardinality. This covers the basics of understanding numbers. So you'll need to know how to help students compare and order the different numbers they're working with. So just the literal foundation of all other math skills. No pressure. This is where the 240 study guide comes in handy. We've got all you need to know. But for now, let's look at one skill we know is going to come up. You'll need to be able to compare fractions and decimals to whole numbers. So you may be asked, which is greater, 4/5 or 0.7? To answer this question, we need to have both numbers be either a fraction or a decimal. You could take 4 divided by 5, which is equal to 0.8. But you don't have access to a calculator on this exam. So let's keep it simple and stick with fractions. Since 0.7 represents 7/10, you can turn it into a fraction of 7/10. Great, both fractions. But before we can compare both fractions, we need them to have the same denominator. So 4/5, then multiply both the top and the bottom number by 2, then get 8/10. Either way you do it, we can see that 0.8 is larger than 0.7 and that 8/10 is larger than 7/10. So 4/5 is larger than 0.7. Got it? Now let's see a need to know for objective 2. This one is all about the operations used to solve equations. More specifically, you'll need to know the rules and properties that tell you what to do when solving a math problem. Ooh, the operational properties show up here a lot. Let's look at the big 3 together. The commutative property says that an operation is commutative if changing the order of the values involved does not change the outcome. Addition and multiplication are commutative. 5 plus 3 is the same as 3 plus 5, and 5 times 3 is the same as 3 times 5. If the values in an expression can be regrouped, but will yield the same outcome as with the original grouping, it is said to be associative. Addition and multiplication are associative. No matter where the grouping symbols appear in these examples, the outcome is the same. The distributive property states that multiplying a factor with a sum is equal to multiplying that factor with each term of that sum separately, and then finding the sum afterward. I know. Did I lose you on that one? It sounds more complicated than it is, I promise. Say I have 3 times the quantity of 40 plus 8. I can either do the adding first and do 3 times 48, or I can add at the end. So 3 times 40 and 3 times 8. Then put them together. Either way, same answer. That last one is really helpful when you're doing mental math. You can solve the problem in the way that is easiest for your brain to do without a calculator. Okay, let's keep moving to the third objective. This place value objective is all about, well, you guessed it, place value. That means you'll need to understand a place value chart like this one and the value each digit within a larger number holds. For example, the digit 7 appears in each of these three numbers, but it holds a different value in each of them. In 5,237, the 7 is in the ones place and has the value of 7. In 7,852, 7 is in the thousands place and has a value of 7,000. And in 82 and 47 thousandths, 7 is in the thousandths place and has a value of 0.007. On to objective 4, fractions. I know, everyone's favorite, right? Don't worry, you've got this. You'll need to be able to add, subtract, and multiply fractions. Oh, we've got a great video on this in our study guide. Want to see it?
To multiply two fractions, you first multiply the numerators, the top numbers, to get the numerator in the product. Then you multiply the denominators, the bottom numbers, to get the product's denominator. Let's work a problem as an example. What is 1/2 times 3/4? The numerators are 1 and 3. 1 times 3 equals 3, which will be the numerator. The denominators are 2 and 4. 2 times 4 equals 8, which will be the denominator. So the answer is 3/8. Notice that the product 3/8 is smaller than both original fractions, 1/2 and 3/4.
Our study guides are packed with videos from our fantastic tutors, just like that one. They walk you through the content step by step. Here we are at the 5th objective, measurement and data. A lot of what you'll see in the data section are the measures of central tendency. So we're talking mean, median, mode, and range. 5 students have their height measured. The data set is 158, 155, 164, 155, 168. What is the mean, median, mode, and range? Okay, first, rearrange the data set from least to greatest. The mean is the average, so all these numbers added up, divided by the number of data points, or in this case 5, gives us 160. The median is the middle value, so 158. The mode, that is the number that appears most often. Since the value 155 appears twice, that is our mode. Finally, the range, that is the largest value minus the smallest value. So 168 minus 155, you got it. Our range is 13. In this section, you'll not only need to analyze the data, like we just did together, but you'll also need to be able to interpret the data. Basically, determine what conclusion can you draw from the numbers in front of you. We are on our last math objective, geometry. You might be asking me, Lyd, I thought I was teaching elementary students. Why do I need to know geometry? Well, let me tell you, friend. Geometry can refer to anything that has to do with the measurement and properties of shapes. So, even if you're just finding area and perimeter of a rectangle, you are doing geometry. Let's do a little refresher on area and perimeter while we're here. Remember that the area of a shape is the surface inside a figure. Perimeter is the distance around the outside of that figure. So you'll want to brush up on some of the formulas used to calculate area and perimeter. Here's a list of the most common ones. You've made it through the entire math section. You, my friend, are doing great. Now, can we just pause for a moment and recognize you for putting in the time to start preparing for your GACE exam? I am so proud of you. All right, enough mushy stuff. Back to business and onto my personal favorite, science. In the science portion of the test, you will see that we've got an objective that focuses on each of the 3 big areas of science: Earth, physical, and life. But before we get to those, we've got to talk about the nature of science. This objective is all about the big overarching rules about how to do science. So we're talking about thinking scientifically, how to conduct scientific inquiry, and how to communicate scientific ideas with a larger community. Let's take a closer look at inquiry, That seems to come up a lot. Inquiry-based learning centers around developing and answering questions or solving problems from the real-world perspective. Students learn as they develop investigations, perform experiments, and seek answers with teacher-guided conversations and activities. Real science involves discovery and investigation. So, if we want to teach students to think like real scientists, they have to do science, not just read about it or listen to it. I got a little something for you on how we're gonna go over this in our study guide. You wanna see it? Let's head into the guide.
During the inquiry process, students develop the habits and skills of science as well as the ability to think critically. Students tend to understand more deeply, retain more information, and be more engaged when they discover answers themselves, in context, using hands-on direct experiences that can be connected to previously built knowledge and related to real-world situations.
So, here is a tip. Any chance you get to have students experiment with their hands, collect their own data, and generally just try to figure things out on their own, that is the best. Next on the list, Earth Science. In this section, you'll need to know about the cycles and processes that occur on Earth. This includes short cycles like day and night, all the way up to processes that take millions of years, like plate tectonics. Let's take a closer look at the last one. Plate tectonics is the large-scale movement of portions of the Earth's crust over long periods of time. And when two plates meet, that's called a boundary. There are 3 kinds of plate boundaries. When 2 plates move towards each other, it is called a convergent boundary. As one plate is pushed below the other, the lower plate becomes part of the mantle. This is a destructive process because part of the plate is being destroyed. If 2 plates move away from each other, it's called a divergent boundary. This is a constructive process because as those 2 plates move away from each other, material from the mantle comes up to fill the gap, creating new land. And finally, if 2 plates push past each other in opposite directions, it is called a transform boundary. Just like that, we're halfway through science. Next on the list is physical science. You'll need to be able to describe objects in terms of their properties, which is just a different way of saying you'll need to know the characteristics of matter. Let's start with naming the states of matter: solids, liquids, and gases. The properties of each include knowing that a solid has a fixed volume and shape. A liquid, it has a fixed volume, but not a fixed shape. And a gas has neither, not a fixed volume, not a fixed shape. And in the study guide, we've got all the information you need to know in a graphic like this one, or in a video like the one you saw earlier. So guess what? You can choose how you want to learn. You'll also need to know physical and chemical changes of matter, like when an ice cube melts or a candle burns. Also, how to classify matter into elements, compounds, and mixtures. Ready to tackle life science? Now, just a heads up. There is a lot in this life science objective. You'll need to know the characteristics of living and non-living things, understand the growth and development life cycle of different living things and the habitats of organisms. You will also need to understand the relationships between organisms and how they respond to their environment. And finally, understand inherited traits, learn behaviors versus adaptations, and any other factors that affect the survival of organisms. All done. Just kidding. But you do need to know all of what I just mentioned. So let's get you started. You need to be able to tell if something is alive. So how do you know if something is alive or living? Well, something that is alive is made of cells, responds to stimuli from its environment, maintains homeostasis, grows and develops, reproduces, and has a metabolism. If it doesn't meet all these criteria, it is not alive. But like you saw before, there's so much more to know just in this objective alone. So you could spend your time Googling your heart out, or you could just check out the 240 study guide. Hey, we're almost there. Hang with me. Last area we need to cover: health education, physical education, and the arts, starting with health and PE. This section is all about how to live a healthy lifestyle. It covers everything from diet and exercise to disease prevention and mental health. So you'll want to know the basics, like the FDA's current dietary guidelines. Check out this graphic. It is the My Plate image. It shows the relative portion sizes of each type of food for a balanced meal. We made it to the last objective, art, and they mean all of the arts. So you'll need to know the basics of dance, music, theater, and visual art. A good starting place here is visual art, specifically the color wheel. The primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. If you mix two of those together, you get a secondary color of orange, green, or purple. And don't stop there. If you mix a primary and a secondary color together, you get a tertiary color. And that's it. We've made it through all the content. Let's look at some practice questions now to show you how those concepts we just went over can appear on the test. Hey, looking for extra questions? Check out our plan to pass. It will guide you every step of the way. Now for some practice questions. Here's one from the place value objective. What is the value of the 7 in the number 432 and 769 10,000ths? The 7 is the second number after the decimal, so it has the value of 7 hundredths, or 7 divided by 100. So this is the correct answer. What about a fractions question? Which of the following principles is demonstrated by the figures below? First thing to notice is that all of these figures have the same denominator, or the number on the bottom of the fraction. Looking at the shaded areas of each circle and the number they match up with, this is the best answer. The denominator remains 4 throughout the figures. As the numerator decreases, the fraction also decreases. Now, for objective 4, the one on measurement and data. The number of inches of snowfall in Selbyville is graphed in the bar chart below. What is the mean number of inches of snowfall per month from November to March? To find the mean, we need to add up all values and divide by the number of values in the data set. So, 5 plus 7 plus 9 plus 8 plus 1, which equals 30. There are 5 data points, so 30 divided by 5 gives us 6. So this one is correct. Last one for math? Geometry. We're told the west wall of a square room has a length of 13 feet, and they want the perimeter of the entire room. Well, squares have 4 sides of equal measure. So the perimeter, the area around the figure, would be 4 times 13, which is, you got it, 52. On to science, starting with objective 1 and inquiry. Which of the following activities best illustrates an activity related to using scientific inquiry in the classroom? A. Presenting a testable question and having students follow lab instructions to determine the answer. B. Providing students with various materials and lab equipment and asking them to use them to see what they can find out. C. Helping students identify a problem and develop testable questions that might lead to a solution. Or D. Permitting students to search the internet as they fill in the blanks on a science worksheet. An engaging part of scientific inquiry is allowing students to participate in the process of identifying problems to solve and asking questions that might lead to a solution. So, C is the best answer. What about a physical science question? Let's check one out. A solid gold bar is melted in a smelter. Which of the following statements correctly compares the volume of the solid bar to the volume of the liquid gold? Well, volume is a measure of space occupied. Although both have the same number of molecules, the heat needed to melt the gold increases the spaces between the molecules in the liquid. The liquid will have a greater volume, so this is the best answer. Let's look at a life science question. The survival of any living thing is directly dependent upon air, water, shelter, and which of the following? Carbon dioxide, sunlight, sexual reproduction, or nutrition. Both reproduction and nutrition were on the list we looked at earlier. But the key here is that not all organisms use sexual reproduction. Some actually reproduce asexually, so D is the best answer. And finally, let's round out our questions with one from Health and PE. Which of the following systems in humans is the primary barrier for foreign particles? Respiratory, digestive, reproductive, or integumentary? The correct answer is integumentary, because it includes the body's skin, which forms a barrier between the human and its environment. Now that's just a small sampling of practice questions to give you an idea about how these concepts are assessed on the test. Hey, congratulations on finishing the video. If you found it helpful, give it a like. There's plenty more to learn. Did you know that our study guide has hundreds of practice questions? If you really want to make sure you're prepared for the GACE Elementary Education Subtest 2, take the next step now and subscribe to the 240 study guide. It has hours of videos, so you can watch and or listen wherever you are. And most of all, it is test aligned, so you know precisely what you need to study. Remember, it has hundreds of practice questions, so you can be sure you're ready. So click on the link below right now to get started.